Hello, everybody. Thank you for watching. Do you see it flashing? Is the screen flashing too? Okay. So, today in this video, we're going to look at grief and the expression of grief. Where does grief come from? What does unresolved grief, unexpressed grief do to us? And it is a continuation of the last two videos that I've made over the last 2 days. Yesterday, we did a deep dive into anger, rage, and hatred, and the expression of those feelings and emotions. The day before that, on Wednesday, I did a live video that was all about healing trauma, and it was specifically about focusing in on and healing the trauma that caused us when we were children to freeze and created an energetic barrier, a blockage in our energy body, which also affects our physical body. And that blockage has prevented us from expressing these emotions, expressing our fear, expressing our anger, and expressing our grief. And sometimes, for some people, it is simply impossible to express those feelings, sometimes all of them. Some people are completely numb, and there is no emotional expression or very little. Sometimes it's one emotion or a handful of emotions that are sort of off the table in terms of expression. And so Wednesday's video was about identifying those blockages and healing the trauma that caused them, to release them so that you can express those feelings and emotions and energies that until now may have been off the table. How are we doing? 8. I'm going to wait for more people to join, so please take a moment to give me a love heart or a like, or leave a comment, or both, and or share. It'd be nice to get a few more people in here for this work. So, and say hello. Let me know you're here. I actually can't. The new system on Facebook Live is I cannot see a bloody thing, so I don't know who's here, how many people there are. So, and if you have any questions during the course of the workshop, then ask, please. There's no such thing as a silly question. While we're waiting, there is something that I wanted to say about yesterday's video, which is that anger, rage, hatred, annoyance, frustration, irritation, all of these feelings and emotions, which are, as I said yesterday, an expression of the fight instinct, as all feelings and all emotions are, they're completely justified always. There's no such thing as a feeling or an emotion that is experienced by a human being and is, unwarranted or unjustified. If you feel it, then it was caused by something. And this is perhaps particularly true of the fight instinct and the anger, because so many of us were programmed and conditioned and taught and shown that anger is something that is bad. Um, and it never is. It is always a biological response to an external injustice or something wrong in your environment. That's why you get angry. And as such, I want my slippers. I'll have to get them in a minute. As such, it's a very healthy, very positive, and very powerful experience always. What happens to people, what happens to us when we stop expressing our anger, frustration, irritation, etc., is that suddenly, if enough people stop expressing that, then nobody is doing anything about what is wrong in the world around us. So it's unbelievably important for humanity, for the collective, for society to consist of individuals who have done this work and are able to stand up to injustice, who are able to use their voices and take action against what is wrong, and most importantly, for what is right. And many of us who have been blocked in this way and unable to express our rage, unable to express our anger, we lose our power. Thank you. My slippers arrived. We become unable to express our power. And the point that I wanted to make is that in this day and age, at this moment in time, there is so much for us to be angry about. There is so much wrongness and injustice in our daily lives, from environmental destruction to corporate greed to political corruption. The list goes on and on and on. And if a human individual is to navigate through these times in a good way, then it is absolutely necessary to be able to express a full range of emotions. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing these workshops. Today, we're going to focus in on grief. And I want to talk a little bit now about... Okay, good. About what it is that you might actually have the right to be sad about, to be sorrowful about, to what you might be feeling in pain about, where your grief might be coming from. Most of us have so much grief. It's kind of extraordinary, really. It's extraordinary that we don't, some of us just drop dead from sadness. But we're very numb to it because there's so much for us to be sad about. There's so much for us to be in grief over. And the only way that we have been able to survive all this time is just to shut it down. There's grief over separation trauma. There's grief over the way we were born. There's grief over the way our caregivers were not able to really see us, really hear us. There's grief over the loss of our innocence, and there's grief over the loss of our childhood, all the ways in which we were not allowed to be children, to express ourselves as children. There's grief over the environmental collapse that we're witnessing, the species that are becoming extinct, and the way the climate is changing. We feel each other's grief, and we feel the grief of the earth. We feel the pain of the world. We are all empathic. We are all sensitive. To be a human being is to be an emotional, sensitive being, and for good reason. There's grief over the loss of our rights. There's grief over the loss of this old paradigm that until about a month ago was all we ever knew. Grief over the loss of our lives, of our livelihoods, not to mention the obvious things. And I could go on and on and on and on. And we're all affected by it. The only difference is that many of us don't realize it, because out of necessity, we've had to become numb. We've had to block the emotion and the feeling, because when you don't express it spontaneously and it accumulates, because one grief hasn't been expressed, so I'm holding it in my body. The next one isn't expressed, sits on top of the second one. This ball of grief grows inside of us. And there comes a point where the only way really to survive that internal pressure is to switch it off, to numb ourselves to it. Unresolved anger that is held in the body prevents us from expressing our grief. And many people, of course, when they're on the verge of expressing sorrow and grief, get angry. And that's why, because the anger is almost like a defense mechanism. It's like a valve. There's too much grief, so we go into anger. Or it's simply easier for us to express anger for whatever reason. Perhaps that's what we were taught in our childhood. So anger stored in the body prevents us from being able to grieve fully. Fear that we hold in the body prevents us from being able to express our anger fully. And the grief that we're working on today prevents us from love, blocks us from being the love that we are, from feeling love, from receiving love, from shining and expressing the love that we are. That's what grief does, that is stored in the body and not expressed. So you see there are these layers of expression and suppression. And the more you suppress, the more you're blocked from expressing. And as I said, there are many, many human beings who are completely numb, unable to. I was one, and I've had many clients that have come to me for that very reason. I'm numb. Can you help me feel something? And yeah, Joseph. Hi, Joseph. Nice to have a guy with us on the call. And Christopher, of course. And the other guy is Curtis. And another Christopher. Okay, we've got a few guys. Good, good, good. So Joseph says, my grief and anger freezes me. I sleep entire days and weeks away. Yeah, well, look, Joseph, if you didn't see the first video, the one on Wednesday, I strongly recommend that you go watch that carefully and do what we do in the video, play along with the video. And then, I mean, watch this now by all means. But then you can take these three, and this is the point, this is the purpose of these three workshops. It's not really just for everyone that is watching live. I'm hoping that you'll come back to them, that you'll work with the information and the tools, the practices that I share with you, so that anyone that watches these videos and wants to use them to do this work for themselves can do it, you know. And like I say again and again and again, it's the most important thing. It's the single most important thing that any of us can do right now, you know, because it's inner work. And this reality, what most people don't understand is that this reality is a creation and we co-create it. And the way we create it is whatever vibration we have inside of us energetically, that is what will appear outside of us. That's why if you're not paying attention, if you're not present, very often you'll stub your toe or have an accident. It's why if you're really angry and you're not expressing it properly, you'll smash something or you'll have an accident, or somebody else angry, you'll meet them and you'll have a confrontation. Whatever vibration you're holding, that is the vibration that you will meet outside of you. And collectively, in the collective consciousness, whatever vibration is kind of running and taking over the collective consciousness, that affects us very much as well. So currently in the collective consciousness, there's a huge amount of fear. There's a huge amount of anger, rage, hatred, and there's a massive amount of grief. And if we, enough of us as individuals, do this work, if we deal with our fear, if we deal with our trauma so that we're not blocked from being who we are, if we express and get rid of all of this old anger and all of this old grief, then what happens is we become, as individuals, we become much lighter, because all that stuff is literally weighing us down. We become much lighter, which means that our energy can flow more freely. And there are so many positive side effects of that. We become much more healthy, physically, biologically, but also emotionally and mentally. We feel better and we think clearer and we become more in our power. And it would be good if a lot of people did that, you know. So share this video. Take a moment now, if you would, to share this video on your timeline, on your wall, with some people that you know that you think might benefit. Leave a comment or give me a like or a love heart, because that helps gain traction on Facebook. We'll get a few more people in here and then we'll start doing the practical side of the workshop. Yeah, Christopher is asking about fear, anger, and grief, the three shadows or demons of the chakras. Yes, they do correspond to the root. They correspond a little bit. They correspond, but not completely. Fear is definitely in the root. Anger, I would say, is blocking the second chakra, which is also guilt, as I'm sure you know, and also the solar plexus. And yes, grief is the shadow of the heart chakra. So just to be clear, if when we start doing this work that we're going to start doing in a moment, if when I share this stuff with you and when you're practicing it, you feel that you can't access your grief and you feel that it's not possible for you to get it out, to express it, then there are a number of reasons why that might be happening. The first and most obvious reason is that your relationship with grief is blocked, which is to say that there is a blockage in your heart. Not your physical heart, but energetically, the energetic center in the center of the chest is blocked. And if that is the case, that will be the result of some kind of childhood trauma, which most likely has roots in ancestral trauma. And you would need to go and watch the first video, which I recorded on Wednesday live. And it is about healing trauma and releasing the energetic blockages that prevent us from being able to express ourselves fully. The second reason why you may be unable to access your grief and or express it is that you may have a pattern of going into anger. When you're getting close to the grief, you go into the anger. It's like a kind of a valve. Something in there believes that grief is not safe. I'll lose control if I go into my grief. Or what will people think of me if I go into my grief? And of course, this is particularly for men. As men, we're particularly prone to being blocked in our expression of pain, grief, sadness, sorrow. And women, on the other hand, generalization, but generally it's true, women are more prone to being blocked in their expression of anger. So, yeah, the second reason why you may be unable to express the grief is because you go habitually into anger as a defense mechanism. I'm not safe expressing grief, but I can get angry about it, right? Then you would need to rewind, do the video, or do the process on anger as we did yesterday in Thursday's video. And of course, it could also be, and we haven't worked directly on this, maybe I'll do a video on this in the future. It could also be that you're frozen with fear. Many people at the moment are so stuck in fear and anxiety and stress and worry and doubt and uncertainty that the work needs to go there first. That is to say that the root chakra is completely blocked. Okay, Natalie is asking a very good question. What about the other way around? Feeling overwhelmed by grief, feeling very emotional and crying a lot. So there's two possible reasons for this, from what I can tell at the moment. One is that one possibility is that there is some unresolved childhood trauma around grief. So in other words, something happened perhaps when you were a little girl that caused a great deal of grief, a great deal of pain. And that was never resolved. And that pain and that grief was never expressed. So it's a little bit like it's a little bit like walking around with a stone in your shoe. You know, it's constantly causing this pain to come up. And what is needed in that situation is to stop, to take the shoe off, to take the stone out. But instead, what happens is that the stone has become a way of life. The stone is almost, you got used to the stone. You got used to that childhood trauma that was never resolved. And tell me if any of this resonates with you. Another reason for it could be that what I was saying a moment ago is inverted and twisted around the other way. So that instead of unable to express grief because very able to express anger, it could be that the anger is not expressed and it's just much easier for you to be in grief. And if that's the case, what is needed is to have a really good, to build a really good relationship with anger, rage, and hatred so that you get through that into your power. And as I said a little while ago, very often for women, the grief is readily available. You know, grief is there and it's okay to grieve and it's okay to cry. And there is this very strong emotional expression, but anger is off the table. So sometimes what is needed is to really just get into the anger and to access your power as a woman through that. And then the grief becomes much less comes back into balance. I'll say something that I said in the last two videos, and I'm going to share a little text as I did in the last two videos. And the text is about ritual. Because this work that we're doing in these videos is, we could call it inner work, healing, personal development. It's not really spiritual practice because the work that we're doing is connected to the lower chakras. And our lower chakras are really about our animal nature: fear, safety, the root chakra. Anger or freedom, the second chakra. Power or its shadow. And grief in the heart. When you get into the heart, it begins to become spiritual. But up until the third chakra, the solar plexus, that journey is really about growing up. It's about becoming an empowered and responsible adult human being. Okay, thanks for letting me know, Natalie. And this inner work, this healing work, requires really only one thing. There's only one thing you need. And I wish I could share this so widely. In order to get this work done and to get it done efficiently and effectively and in a healthy way, in a good way. And that one thing is a good intention. And this is why, for most of us that end up doing this work, it's because we didn't have much choice. You know, usually it takes a series of total disasters and life becoming upturned before we as human beings go, okay, all right, I give up. I'm going to do this work. And the extent of our commitment to it usually depends on the extent to which we kind of don't have a choice. So what I recommend very strongly to you at this time is to take this opportunity to become very clear and very intentional about doing this work. Understand that everything you want in life, all of your dreams, and everything you don't want, to a great extent, depends on your internal vibration. As I said earlier, we create and attract based on what is going on internally. Most people are full of fear and their whole life is lived just up here, disconnected and cut off from the world. And so what's happening is that the internal energetics are basically in chaos. And so life becomes very chaotic. And if enough of us, if enough of the 8 billion people on the planet are living like that, then there will be chaos, there'll be war, there'll be sickness, there'll be pandemics. And of course, the word pandemic, if you take the DEM out, then you're left with panic. The root of this word comes from Pan, which was a horned god. And if enough of us are in fear and panic, then fear and panic will become our external reality. And of course, that's what's happening. And we can all argue till we're blue on the face on Facebook about who started it and why and etc. It's irrelevant when you understand that the solution to all of our problems, but especially to this one, is to do the internal work and to become responsible adult human beings. Sure. Okay. So yeah, so Kimber is saying about this question of too much grief. I used to feel so much grief and cry often. I came to discover it was anger. I had no outlet for anger, if you will, because I learned that if I felt angry, I was bad or wrong. So I channeled my anger through the tear channel. I knew how to cry, and that was an okay thing to do. And the tear channel, if you will, isn't equipped to express the energy of anger. I wasn't getting it out. Yeah, exactly. Okay, so in order to help you to become really intentional, to channel your clear choice to do this healing work and to take responsibility for your internal landscape so that you can take responsibility for the external landscape. What I'm suggesting today, yesterday, and the day before is to do some kind of ritual. As human beings, our greatest power is the power that we have to make a choice, to make a decision, and to carry out that decision. And this is what intention is about. You can watch this video and you can kind of, dabble in what I'm sharing with you, and you'll get some results, I'm sure. But if you really become intentional about it and you take these tools and you really run with them, then you can transform your life. So what I recommend is that and I'm sharing a text now in the comments video. It's about ritual. It's for anybody that is not familiar and perhaps has no experience of performing a ritual for themselves. Ritual can be very simple, and we all know how to do it really because our ancestors did a lot of ritual. That's how they lived. We've become convinced that this world is material and mundane, but it isn't. It's magical and it's energetic. And ritual is a way of tapping in to those forces, to those energies of magic and of spirit, if you like, to get assistance from them, to align ourselves with the magical reality of who we are and where we are. And so I recommend that you come to this work with that kind of intention and that kind of humility and that kind of openness that are part and parcel of being involved in ritual. I'm also holding a particular vibration as I do this video because it is particularly about grief, and humanity has a lot to grieve. In the same way that we have a lot to be angry about, we have a lot to grieve, and we hold a lot of grief. And the suppression of that grief and the holding of it in our bodies prevents us, as I said earlier, from expressing our true nature, which is love. This is how love and grief work with each other. Grief, held in the body, blocks the heart, prevents the heart from opening fully, and prevents that generosity and that sharing that is a natural expression of an open heart. And again, if you have any questions, then go ahead in the comment section. So I want you to take a moment now to feel into your pain. Take a moment to feel into and to reflect on everything in you and everything around you that is a source of pain or grief or sorrow. Allow yourself, give yourself permission right now to be soft. Because when we approach grief, we don't approach grief in the way that our society has trained us to approach grief. Our society has trained us to approach grief in two ways. One, to avoid it, pretend it doesn't exist, suppress it, avoid it, just move through it, get beyond it. Doesn't work. And the other is to deal with grief in a kind of almost like a macho way, hard way. To grieve, but to grieve fast and hard, and then move on. And that's not how we can deal with grief. It doesn't work like that. Grief brings us to our knees, and there is no pushing through it when you're in grief. We have to surrender control to it in the same way that we can surrender control to our anger and to our rage and simply to our bodies. It's about surrendering control to the body and allowing the body to feel what it feels and to express how it expresses. And the body is an animal. The body that we're in is an animal. And the reason why this particular practice is called animal body expression is because we get out of the way and just allow the body to express in the way that it knows how. The way that it knows how is informed by hundreds of millions of years of evolution. Whatever you believe about evolution, the human body has been doing this for a very long time. And the little personality, the mind, the ego, business, however, even if you're 99 years old or 120 years old, that's nothing compared to hundreds of millions of years of evolution. So it's about getting out the way and allowing the body to express itself. Curtis is asking, is humility also from the heart? That's a really interesting question. And if anyone has any answers to that, then feel free to share, because it's a question that I don't know is the honest answer. I've thought a lot about humility. I've spent 8 days on 2 separate occasions praying for humility, fasting from water, from food in a very special way. And humility definitely has something to do with the heart. But my feeling, kind of intuitively, is that humility is more of a global thing, that it's not only about the heart, but it is definitely connected to the heart. And it's through humility that compassion arises. But yeah, good question. Simplest answer is not quite sure. Christopher Jones is saying yes, totally, and I'm not sure if he means in response to Curtis's question or to something that I said. Maybe he can clarify that, because I know that he has some wisdom and some experience on this path. So we're taking some time now to contemplate and to feel into and to acknowledge and to recognize and to remember, to allow this grief that we have inside of us to come to the surface, to be seen. You might want to write it down. And of course, as I said in yesterday's video, and I want to make it very clear again today, this practice that I'm sharing with you now this practice that I'm sharing with you now, yes, you can do it now. You might be absolutely ready to do it now, like a ripe fruit, But for most people, the reality is probably that it would make more sense to watch the video, to come to understand what I'm sharing with you, if you haven't watched Wednesday's video on healing the trauma and the energetic blockages, then to do that first. Then to do yesterday's work on, but first to do the ritual. And as I say, you're welcome to copy paste the text that I shared. That's why I've shared it in the comments on ritual if you need it. And to do a ritual to bring yourself into clarity and to crystallize your intention, the intention that you have behind doing this work. Because anything that we do, the more clear and pure our intention is, the more successful we'll be and the more efficient the work that we do will be. So what I'm recommending is that first you do a ritual. Good time to do a ritual is on a full moon or a new moon. But you can do it anytime. If you're in a hurry, do it now. Do it later. I'm recommending you first do the ritual. Get very intentional. Have a strong desire to do this work. Then, having done that, you watch the first video. Heal the blockages. If you can't do it, as I said in that video, if you can't do it, then you need help from a healer or from someone that is specialized in healing trauma to heal that trauma, to move beyond those blockages. Then clear your fear. Then clear your anger. And then come to the work on grief. The wonderful thing about this lockdown is that it is the perfect, and I don't like to use this word lockdown because I don't personally feel locked down, and I don't believe any of you are either. But I'm not going to get political now. But the wonderful thing about this, all the good things, and of course there are many good things about it, one of the really good things about it is it's creating the perfect opportunity to do this work because it's bringing up our emotions, right? Everybody is feeling squeezed. Our anger is coming out. We're irritated. We're annoyed. We're frustrated. Our grief is coming up. Our fear is very obvious to us. So it's the perfect time to do this work. And going back to the question of humility, Christopher says, no, it's not from the heart, but it is a quality that will be present when the heart is open from love. Humility is a reflection of a lack of selfishness. Yes. Yeah, thanks for that, Christopher. I like those answers. And then he also says, yep, totally. To something you said, grief bringing you to the knees. My mother is currently dying, and as I was painting the fence in my garden, a wave of grief crashed through me and threw me to the ground onto my knees. It just dropped me. Yeah. Yeah, I was reading something about grief yesterday, and that's what it was saying. It was saying that we have to go to grief. It's almost as if we are walking into a sacred place. You know, if ever you've walked into a holy place like a big cathedral or an ancient cave or ceremonial ground, you go there in a certain way. You become soft, you become open, you become quite quiet and silent. And grief does that to us as well. The only way I think to really embody it and to really express it fully is to allow ourselves to be kind of broken open by it. And it does that. It does that. It cracks us internally. And that's how the heart becomes open. I haven't had this experience myself, but I've met many people who have had an experience of literally feeling the heart on a physical level, as if on a physical level, cracking or breaking open. Sounds kind of scary, but it has never had, all of the people that I've spoken to have had very positive experiences when they've experienced that because the heart has literally opened. And as a result, yes, you do become more humble, you do become more loving, you do become less selfish, you do become more compassionate. Primarily for yourself, you understand. It's not really about anybody or anything else. You become more compassionate to yourself. You have a better relationship with yourself and the world around you. Okay. So having said all of that, the way to approach grief when you are ready, when you have a good intention and you're clear about your grief, about your pain, and you're ready to get it out of you, you're ready to let it go. As with anger, grief is something that we will encounter again and again and again and again throughout life, because life is painful. People die, people get sick, people leave us, we lose things, we experience loss in many ways. And this world is a world of duality. Yes, there's joy, there's also pain. And that's life. So again and again and again, we will encounter grief and pain. In the same way that again and again and again, we'll come up against something that is wrong, some injustice in the world around us, and it will make us angry or rageful or hateful or just annoyed, irritated, frustrated. The purpose of this work is not to become sort of immune to grief or immune to anger. Not possible. The purpose of this work is to purge and express, release, let go of old, stale, stagnant emotion. Emotion is energy in motion. That's all it is. Energy in motion. Example, I'm walking along the street and I see somebody beating a dog to death. Now, that would make me angry. Why? Because there is some injustice, there's something wrong outside of me. So the anger arises as a natural response to do something, to put it right. Good, a good thing. But if I've got lots and lots of old anger because of all the times that I encountered something wrong, but I didn't do something about it, I wasn't able to express the energy that was arising in me, then that energy, that emotion, energy in motion, that energy gets blocked and stuck in the body and becomes stale and becomes stagnant. So the purpose of this work is not to become immune to anger, to become immune to grief, to become unemotional. The purpose of this work is to release and to purge and to express all the old, stale, stagnant energy and emotion that has become stuck in the body. Yeah, Christopher says, repressing grief locks the heart. Allowing grief out will break your heart, which is what people fear. But allowing that grief out just opens your heart. Energy cannot flow through the heart if it is blocked. Right. So we release the old stuff, the blocked energy, stagnant, stuck energy. We release it, purge it, express it, so that our energy can flow through all of the energetic centers within us, so that we are internally free. Because really all there is energy. The table is energy vibrating in a certain way that makes it look like a table, that gives it the shape and the form of a table for a certain amount of time. Of course, after that amount of time, the material components of the table, the atoms, the molecular structure of the wood disintegrates, rots, goes back to pure energy. What holds it together and makes it look like a table is energy. Same with the human body, same with a star, same with a chimney, same with fire, same with water, same with everything that we can possibly encounter in this material world. All is just energy. And the most common analogy for energy is water. We can understand energy better when we look at water and the properties of water and how water behaves. When water is still for too long and it doesn't get oxygenated, what happens to it? It becomes stagnant, becomes stale, becomes rancid. All the mosquitoes like that, but we don't like that as human beings. So our energy inside of our bodies is the same. When it gets stuck, it becomes stagnant, it becomes toxic, and it literally makes us sick. When the emotion, when the energy is not flowing, when the energy is not in motion, when the emotion is not expressed and it gets stuck, becomes stagnant and it becomes toxic and it makes us sick physically, emotionally, and mentally and spiritually. So the reason why we get it out is so that our energy can flow, so that we can experience what it means to be really a human being. Because most people don't know. Most people today just do not know what it means and what it feels like to be a human being, because the spectrum of human potential is blocked by stagnant, stale emotion. Okay, so when you've done your ritual, when you've got a clear intention and you have this burning desire to release yourself from all of this old stuff, and you come finally to process your grief, then the process is very much similar, if not the same, to the process that I shared with you yesterday. First of all, you put aside the time, and that's very important because you don't want to be disturbed. In order to do this in a good way, you have to plan it a little bit. Make sure that you've got plenty of time to do this, and you need plenty of time afterwards for the integration process, and I will share what the integration process looks like later on in this video. You also put aside, or rather you prepare the space where you're going to do it. Again, you don't want to be disturbed, so turn off gadgets, especially phones and things like that. You might want to put a sign on the door, please do not disturb, so that you can have a clean conscience, so that you know that you're not going to be disturbed and you can give yourself fully to this practice. When you've prepared the space, and that means that you need either on the floor or on a mattress, for example, a bed, somewhere soft, pillows, cushions, blankets. After you have a big purge, a big expression, a big release, you're going to want to rest. So it's nice to cover yourself with a blanket, curl up into a ball. You may find yourself crying a lot, which is good, and keep warm. So blankets, pillows, cushions, soft place where your body can simply do whatever it needs to do. And you might find yourself punching pillows, you might find yourself writhing around, different positions, different gestures, spontaneous expressions of energy. Who knows what could happen? So make a nice, soft little nest for yourself where you're going to do this practice. You might want to bring the ritual element into the practice by lighting a few candles, incense, etc. Whatever you want. But you prepare the space, you put aside the time, and then the first thing you're going to do is you're going to do some shaking practice, which really is very simple. You're going to shake your body vigorously for at least 3 minutes. And I want you to set a timer. 3 minutes, at least 3 minutes. You could do more if you like. Vigorous shaking. You literally shake every part of your body. You want to get every single cell in the body oxygenated and invigorated, and shake it out. Your feet, your toes, your calves, your thighs, your buttocks, your belly, your chest, your back, your shoulders, your head, your neck, your arms, your hands, your fingers. Shake vigorously for the duration of at least 3 minutes. You'll find yourself breathing hard because it's quite hard work. You'll find yourself maybe getting a good sweat on. You'll get hot. It's good. And this will bring you into your body and out of your head, which is the key to doing this work. It's here in the head that we are disconnected from our bodies, from our nature. And the whole point about this work is to get out of the head, to get into the body, and just allow the body to do what it knows how to do. Let go of control. So by shaking We get ourselves out of the head and we get ourselves into the body. Then, next step, are you going to summarize? Okay. And Kimber's going to summarize these steps for you. Next step is to get into your nest, to get into the place that you've put aside, and to get onto your hands and your knees there, to get on the ground, and to begin to breathe very deeply in a specific way, which is to exhale through the mouth. You can inhale through the nose or the mouth, whatever's most comfortable, but exhale with an open mouth, exhale through the mouth like this. Deep breathing. At a certain moment, you will feel like you want to begin to sound the exhale. And it can begin in a very subtle way with a sigh. A sigh. And as you keep breathing like that, you allow this sound to become more full. You might notice that you start to feel perhaps a little bit dizzy. You might start feeling your body tingling in certain areas or throughout the body. You will notice a heightened awareness, and that's good. That's what we're looking for, because we're looking to get into something akin to a trance state, where we're fully in our body, our normal thinking processes are more or less suspended, and what can happen then is that the energies in the body that have been suppressed will naturally arise. They will want to come out when we're in that state that is a little bit like a trance state. So as you breathe deeply, exhaling through the mouth, sounding the exhale, allow whatever wants to come out through this sound that you're making with your voice. Or rather, allow this energy to come out through the sound that your body is voicing, expressing through the throat. And as you do that, stuff will come up. And you surrender to it. Let go, and just allow your animal body to do what it knows how to do what it does best, in the same way that it digests your food and it shits it out without you having to worry about it or get involved in anything. Same way that it keeps your heart beating 24 hours a day and you don't have to think about it. The body knows how to do this. You just get out of the way. And allow that pain, allow that grief, allow that sadness and that sorrow to come out, to be released. Understand that it is the sadness and the sorrow and the pain and the grief of your ancestors who, for a couple of thousand years now, have not been able to fully process and feel and express so many things. From our tribes being conquered and decimated and destroyed, to our lands being taken from us, to our languages being eradicated. The list goes on and on. Allow your body to process this for yourself, for your ancestors, for your descendants, and for the collective. So you're on the floor, you're in this nest space that you've created, and you've done your shaking and you're in your body, and now you're breathing in this particular way, exhaling through the mouth and making this sound. And what you will experience, probably most of you, if you come to it in the right way, what you will experience is a variety of different things happening. As I mentioned, you might feel tingling, you might feel lightheaded, it's all good. And the expression when it comes will be in a number of ways. You might hear yourself making sounds that you never even imagined you could make. Very animal sounds, very animalistic sounds like howling, wailing, shrieking, groaning, moaning, roaring, barking like a dog or like a deer. And these sounds will come from deep down in your gut. They won't be throaty sounds. They certainly won't be nasal sounds, you know. They'll be deep guttural expressions of primal potentiality. And when you start hearing that, it feels very good. You start to understand how much power we have as a human being that has not been tapped yet. That's exciting. You may also experience your body expressing the emotion through your physicality. Like you might want to punch things, you might want to smash things, you might want to squeeze, you might want to stretch. Different gestures and different movements will happen spontaneously. And again, it will feel very good. It will feel very good because you will be discovering, in a certain way, you'll be discovering what your body is capable of when you get the fuck out of the way. It will feel empowered and right. You may also find that energy moves through you and that your body moves completely spontaneously, jerking, writhing, sort of twitching. And again, this is good. This is the body releasing at a purely energetic level stuff that it doesn't need to hold anymore. You may find that you experience muscles, particular areas of the body that spasm, contract very hard, and then release. It's important to keep breathing. Whenever you can breathe, breathe. If you're howling and the sound takes over, then great, go for it. When you get a moment to breathe, then breathe. Keep the breathing going. Deep breathing, exhaling through the mouth. Show me. What's it? Magic number. Yeah, yes. And that's how it's done. And there comes a point where the body may fully express something. And that will look like a sound that you've never heard coming out of your body before, and particular movements, full expression. You really get into the roots of your pain and your grief, and it comes out. There may be a lot of tears, and eventually you will find yourself in a fairly exhausted state, depleted, feeling, but not in a bad way, in a very clean, healthy way. And then you will want to do nothing for a while. I'm suggesting that afterwards you do nothing. Don't think about, going to work or anything like that. Have the time put aside afterwards to do nothing, because the integration process afterwards looks like this. Rest and sleep are number one. What actually happens is that your body on an energetic level has been holding tension and contraction 24 hours a day for years, and suddenly it's released. And there is this unwinding process. The body recalibrates. And there's nothing to worry about. You can go to work. You can go out shopping and stuff. It's just you're not going to have the most pleasant of experiences. You're going to feel fragile. You're going to feel vulnerable. And there's no need to put yourself in that position. So what I suggest is have the time put aside, wrap up in a blanket, curl up in a ball, do whatever you need to do with your body and just rest. If you fall asleep immediately afterwards, then the integration process will go much quicker. And for the next 3 days, get as much rest and sleep as you possibly can. Drink water, good quality water. And I mentioned that. I'm not going to go into it now because I talked about it in yesterday's video, what I mean by good quality water. And eat well, which means listen to the body and honor what the body is calling for. You may, for example, be a vegetarian, and after doing this work, you may have a craving for a steak. And what I would say is that our relationship with food should not be an intellectual relationship. Yeah, it's good to have values and it's good to have ways of eating healthily, but the body knows what it needs. Okay. So be prepared to hear the body calling for something that it needs now that it's shifting and changing and integrating and processing. Eat well by listening to the body and feeding it well. If you get stuck on any of this, then feel free to reach out to me. Um, if I can help you fairly quickly and easily, then I will through a message. Another thing, of course, that you can do is book a session. All of this work can be done by oneself because really all healing is self-healing. Healing comes from within. However, all healing is easier, much easier, when we are supported by a community or by elders or by a healer. And particularly at this time, as I was saying earlier, it's such a wonderful opportunity to do this work. So, and also, if you would like to work with me, the best way to do the work is ongoing, systematically. Because of that, I run a 12-week course and I run an online community or Sangha, spiritual community, which is wonderful and I highly recommend it. So have a look at my website for the other possibilities. Natalie, I'm wondering if it's possible to do this in a gradual way. I have ME/CFS, so starting off exhausted. So maybe I could do it for a shorter duration. Yes, we all have different needs and different um, possibilities. So you can definitely start off in a gradual way. You can definitely do it for shorter duration. But I think that what you'll find is that when you don't think too much about it and you get out the way, the energy will be there. Because the energy that is needed for this work is primal energy. And I suspect that the very cause of the ME/CFS is actually to do with disconnection from that primal source. So, yeah, of course, you can do it and you will do it in the way that you can do it. For some people, they're going to do this the first time and they're going to have a huge release. Other people will do it for the first time and they'll shed a few tears that they were not able to shed before. And that is huge. Don't underestimate the power of one little step, because that can be the thing that you need to get you to the big release. Maybe it takes you 3 little steps, or a little step and a medium-sized step and a big step and then a huge release. We can only do what we can do. The important thing is to just get out of the way and allow your body to take over. Let go of control. Any other questions before we wrap it? At 11:11. Okay. Lots of love. If you do have questions, you can still ask them. I'll see them and reply later. Have a beautiful day, night, morning, wherever you are. Okay, one question is coming up now. Any hints on how to soundproof this? I feel the need to go into it, but I'm concerned that the neighbors will hear. Okay, good question. The best way to soundproof it is to decide that you don't care what anyone thinks about it, because there's always the chance that someone can hear or see you. And that inhibition that is internal will block you. This is why we have to get out of the head. So yeah, you can do everything in your power to soundproof. Close doors, close curtains, close windows. You could even cut up all your egg boxes and put them on the wall to absorb the sound. Um, I don't have any. I'm not a specialist in soundproofing rooms, but you probably know as much as I do. But the key thing is that your desire to be free and to express and to heal yourself in this way is stronger than the inhibition that will prevent you from doing it. Natalie is asking, is the only difference between this and the anger exercise intention? It's the same practice. It is the same practice. The difference is the intention. The difference is also the way in which you will express. And the difference is also the different ways in which the practice will be affected. For example, it will be difficult for some people to express the grief if there's a lot of anger there, or and so on, which I've already covered earlier in this video. And I've been going for 1 hour and 11. Yeah, I like 11:11. Okay, thank you for watching. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for doing this work and for taking responsibility, and sending everyone a lot of love. Be well.